The Summer Birds by Penelope Farmer, Part 2, 2. Although it was nearly 9 o'clock when they reached the school gates, the children were still playing in the yard like so many earthbound sparrows, chattering and calling, the girls on the left side with skipping ropes and the boys with a football on the right. It was only a small yard. Quite often the skipping and the football entangled, and the boys would shout at the girls while the girls shrieked at the boys for interrupting. When Ginger Apple saw the sisters, he came running over, followed reluctantly by Toddy Feather, who did not like girls, but had to put up with them because Ginger was his friend and Ginger loved Emma. Charlotte wondered what they would think of the strange boy, but they did not seem to notice him. She tried to introduce them as her grandfather would, saying, "Ginger, I don't think you know," and then stopping because she suddenly remembered that she did not know the boy's name. But the two boys, Ginger and Toddy, looked at her as though she were talking of ghosts. Ginger was shy and red-headed and heavy, and when he blushed, as he did before Emma, the color of his face clashed with his hair. "Hello, Em," he said. "Hello, Charlotte." "Hello, Ginger. Hello, Toddy," Charlotte answered. Emma, uninterested, giggled and said, "You're blushing, Ginger," and ran across the yard calling her friends. "Annie, Molly, can I play too?" Charlotte was left with the strange boy behind her and Ginger in front, wondering how to comfort poor heavy Ginger, who was redder than ever with sadness because Emma had rushed away. He and everyone else in the school thought Charlotte was a prig. None of them knew how difficult it was for her living between Emma, who was always naughty, and their grandfather, who liked little girls good. So Charlotte stood shy and Ginger stood blushing by the big school gates while Toddy Feather waited for Ginger, plucking at his sleeve. The boy behind surveyed them with an odd half-smile. At that moment, Miss Halibut, the teacher, came out, ringing the big brass bell. The shouting and chattering changed from skipping and football shouts to school morning ones, such as, "It's my turn to collect books today, so you just mind out, Molly Scob," as the children streamed out of the sunlit morning into the schoolroom. "Silence, children, silence!" fussed Miss Halibut distractedly behind them, her hair falling down. "Silence, silence!" And gradually their whisperings died away altogether, and the banging of desk lids ceased. The boy had followed Charlotte into the schoolroom, but no one seemed to notice him. No one nudged Charlotte and said, "Who's that?" in a loud whisper, as they usually did with strangers. Indeed, it was almost as if they did not notice him at all. He sat cross-legged on the floor between Charlotte and the window, watching Miss Halibut open the attendance book with its scarlet binding and survey her class. Miss Halibut looked straight at him, but she did not say, "I was not aware that we were to have a new pupil," or some such remark. It seemed that her pebble-gray eyes, staring at his thin body, saw only air. But she looked around at all the other children sitting 2 by 2 in her classroom, with its maps and its ink stains, with its jar of buttercups drooping on the high windowsill beside the window cord, the yellow petals falling on the floor in a dust of pollen. "John Apple," she said. "Here, miss," answered Ginger in his funny horsey voice. "Thomas Feather." "Here," cried spectacled Toddy quickly. "Robert Thumpkins." "I'm here," said Baby importantly, because his parents owned the only television set in the village. "William Scragg." "Here," said Bandy, the butcher's son, with his wicked sideways grin. "George Dimple." "Here," replied Scooter, trying to sound wicked like Bandy, but only sounding solemn. "James Hat." "I'm here," shrieked eager Jammy, the smallest in the class. "Annie Feather?" said Miss Halibut, turning to the girls. "Here," said Toddy's younger sister, heavy and serious. "Molly Scob." It was Annie's best friend. She was Annie's best friend and wore a pink hair ribbon. "Here," she said. "Marlene Scragg." "Here," declared Marley, looking almost as wicked as her twin brother Bandy, with the same sideways grin. "Magdalene Hobbin." "Here," answered the remote brown-legged girl they had nicknamed Maggot. She lived with her gamekeeper uncle in a cottage in the woods. He took little notice of her, and no one knew what had happened to her parents. Charlotte Makepeace? Here, said Charlotte, wondering about the strange maggot as she always did. And Emma Makepeace. Here, I'm here, cried Emma last of all. As the morning went on, Charlotte's attention wavered from the lessons. She watched shadows on the ceiling, or a careless fly buzzing on the window, or the falling buttercups instead of reading the words in the books. The boy grew increasingly impatient. Why are we waiting? He whispered to her at last. Won't you come on? But where? Hushed Charlotte bewilderedly. How can I come at school time? I shall be missed. He looked scornfully around the classroom. It had grown hotter during the morning. The heat swelled among the desks, crowded together in and out of the sleepy-backed children. The only live thing was the sunlight, which burned on the floor by the window and picked out the colors of the dresses and the lights in the children's hair. Even the teacher's hand moved more slowly over the blackboard, and the silence was as thick as velvet. Come on, said the boy again. I can teach you more than this. Come on, come on, come on, before I burst. Charlotte, still bewildered, found herself sitting with him on the window-sill, and a moment later they had jumped out onto the grass beneath the window. They landed in a heap like puppies, and sat up smiling at each other. Charlotte was surprised to find that she did not feel in the least guilty at playing truant. All that mattered was that it was a beautiful morning, and she was out in it and happy as a bird. And that is the end of chapter 2.